Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Oops.
All right, so I'll give a rundown on the preliminary budget. And so we have a tax levy increase this year of 1.09%. Everything is pretty stable. You know, we will have increases, of course, in salaries and employee benefits. We will have a small increase in capital note interest because we will be issuing bands this year. It'll be an interest only for this coming fiscal year we're talking about. And the other thing I would note of change is that the mayor has reduced his salary to 0.
The record should reflect I have not been collecting a salary, but state law requires there to be a budget line until a new term begins. So theoretically, even though I haven't been collecting a salary, I would be entitled to one based on last year's budget through the end of June. And as of July 1st, the new budget year, the mayor's salary is reduced to 0. But the reality is I've never taken a salary.
Thank you very much. Actually, with that, the new increase in the property tax levy, I'm sorry, is 1.0175%. You can see that in the top boxes. Okay. And then the other thing to note is that our assessed valuation has gone down because of tax tertiary cases that were successful. So even though there's only a 1.0175% increase in the levy, there will be an increase of 1.83% because that increase is over less assessed valuation, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty much it. You know, we have increases for the police. They're right now in the middle of negotiations for their new contract. And the mayor is working on that, but I put a number in there that we anticipate will be a good number to settle on. And everything else has been submitted by Jeff Voss as far as his needs for DPW. So we have one increase in the treasurer contractual, which is on the second page, 1325.4. We are going to be engaging with Andrew Arias of Cooper Arias. They're our auditors, and they're going to provide monthly consulting services to help Elizabeth with all of the financials, statements and stuff, just to help her out. And so we will be appropriating surplus from the general fund of 189,000. But we right now in our general checking and savings account at NY Class, we are at approximately 2.8 million. So, you know, I think that is a pretty good number. I don't know if there's any comment if you would like to take out more from there.
Well, first, let me just say for the record, and then I guess the trustees can make their comments. I just want to note that the tax increase of 1.83% should be compared to the proposed Tuxedo Union Free School District tax increase of 4.18, which was proposed last night, and the town tax increase, which was proposed last December and passed, of 7.5%. So I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to the deputy mayor for economically working out the budget to provide for the lowest reasonable tax increase, certainly as compared to the other jurisdictions that we pay taxes to. Trustee Scherer, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just had a question about first of all,
Deputy Mayor Lindsay, thank you for everything you do, because I know it's a tremendous amount of work. And you know, you roll up your sleeves and you did it. And
Thank
so
you for
thank
that.
you. No, like seriously, I know it's a lot of work, and obviously, thank you. But you know, she's a volunteer, so I really appreciate that. Um, the uh, the question I have is just about the mayor's salary. You're waiving it, or is it permanent, or is it permanently gone?
The law specifies that you cannot reduce
Mhm.
the mayor's salary during the term of office. When
Okay,
I became mayor in 2023, it was
Yeah.
during the 2023-24 budget year.
right,
My first budget was 2024-2025.
right,
That was in the middle of my term.
right.
So we were not permitted under law to zero out that line.
I understand.
However, my term ending at the end of June, and this budget being for July 2025 through May 31st, 2026,
Right,
we are permitted to reduce the salary to any number, and I chose the number 0 because I haven't been collecting a salary.
yeah,
We're all volunteers, and
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate that any of us should be collecting a salary. Now, should a new mayor be elected, that new mayor can certainly come before the board
right,
and request a salary.
right.
That can be changed at any point in time.
And the original thought behind putting the salary in place was, um, with maybe the exception of the deputy mayor, given the work she's doing on this, the mayor's job actually requires real time and attention.
But it
And-
does,
and,
yeah.
And, you know, I think Mayor McFadden clearly spent a lot of time on it. I know you have. And so the thought was, if we want to attract, you know, talented, and dedicated individuals, maybe that would be an incentive to maybe up the quality of the people that are interested. So it's just something that's worth thinking about. You're obviously, thank you for waiving it and now reducing it to 0, but the consequence may be that, you know, we're at 0. Does that affect our candidate pool 2 years from now?
Well,
It's a question.
it certainly is a valid question, but I would point to the history of the park, which is that no mayor, rich, poor, or somewhere in between, has
Right.
ever collected a salary until Mayor McFadden
Right.
did. And as I said, the board, at the request of the mayor, some
Mhm.
future mayor, is always free to determine what would be a fair salary, should the mayor request it.
Okay.
I mean, that's really where it is. If the
Okay.
board agrees, the mayor can get a salary of the board's choosing.
Yeah, I suppose we could keep it, as long as we keep it as a budget line, we could even do a budget modification during the year.
That's kind of where I was going, which is if you leave it as a budget line, but you continue to waive it, you're not really changing, you're leaving that incentive in place. And it's, the only reason I raise it is because we did discuss this as a board, a different board. We all agreed, yes, this makes sense. And so I'm just wondering if maybe another way to handle this is just to leave it in as a budget item, but you waive it. It's a question. I'm not dogmatic about it.
What we could do is leave it in, increase the amount we are planning to appropriate from
To
surplus
cover
Right.
it.
to cover it,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the year, if it's more surplus, it's surplus, right? If we don't use it.
If we don't use it.
So
Yeah,
no
the
harm done
original
in
logic
keeping-
was that there is a governance function that all the trustees and the mayor has, and that governance function is pro bono.
Mhm.
Executive function requires time in the office, doing all that stuff. And we decided that compensation would be appropriate for that. It's not a big number.
It's not a big number.
And I would think that we continue to hold it in there. Or, you know, in principle, there should be an executive function compensation in there. Nobody has to take it. But we went through the process of putting it in. I think taking it out, potentially putting it back in is just cumbersome. And I would leave it in, and if he doesn't want to take it, that's fine. But as a board, our responsibility should provide for executive function compensation if it's appropriate and stands outside the area of governance.
I mean, I could make the argument that it expands the pool of talent that would be interested in the role.
Well, this being election season, I'm not gonna respond to that. I'm running for reelection. So I have no response directly to expanding the pool of talent who might challenge my reelection bid.
Right, I understand.
So that's, listen, there's three of you here. If you agree, I will abstain from that decision.
My preference, again, it's not I'm not gonna die on this hill, but my preference is to keep it.
Then we would just increase the appropriated surplus line.
30.
At 30,
35,700.
Or do
35.
whatever.
35,700.
35,700. That's a very specific number. How did we come up with?
Is it 37,500?
I hope it was 37,500.
Maybe it was.
do you
I think
have,
it was, let's see. That was 35,700.
Maybe
It must have been just a
it-
percentage increase.
There must have been an
Yeah.
inflationary adjustment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it started out at 35. Okay, so
Alright.
that's what we'll do, we'll
Alright.
just increase.
Okay.
okay,
And then also one thing that we
The other
didn't
guy
have,
is here.
oh, good.
Good. Good.
I had one question.
Sure.
If you look at the interfund revenues for the sewer fund. there was
Are we on
one-
the sewer budget?
Yeah, we're in the sewer budget.
Hold on.
There's
Hold on, let me-
there's $136,000 transfer into it.
That's because the sewer. One of the things that we are going to tackle in the next few months is, looking at the sewer and water fees. When the sewer fund was separated from the general fund, it was not funded with enough money to pay its debt.
Mhm.
So that's why there's,
So the separate budget was inadequately funded and we have a transfer
yes,
of 136,000 to give us 500. Now, we have no such transfer in the coming year and it's down to 362.
there is a decrease in the overall debt. Let's see, where is that now? Let me see the line you're looking at. There it is. Okay, under the debt, bond anticipation notes, principal on the existing ones is 50,000, interest only is 10,000, that's for the new ones that we're gonna be issuing. So what was your question again?
So what you're saying is we will lose the 136,000 interfund transfer and replace it with debt that we can draw down that apparently does not appear in the,
Where's your
Right here, right,
136?
this interfund revenues in the adopted 2023, 2024.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, okay, thank you. Oh, that up there,
Yeah.
interfund revenues,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's anticipating that we're gonna fix the problems with the sewer fund. But if we don't, then we'll have to have another transfer from general fund. But the agreement that you approved at the last meeting was to hire the consultant to help us figure out how to straighten out the water and sewer rates. But if we need it, then obviously, if we, that's anticipating we're gonna change that.
appropriations are pretty much flat. Employee benefits are up, but it's not a big number.
Well, it's a
Down,
small
actually.
number for sewer.
And debt is up. Okay, it's fine.
any other comments from the trustees before I open up the floor to the members of the public who wish to speak?
Just to echo what Josh said. It's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone, any members of the public who'd like to address the board on the budget? Todd Yanuzzi, please take the podium and tell us what you'd like to say.
All right, thank you. And I also echo and appreciate the work that went into this, and I was familiar with the budgetary process several years ago. And it's always a big job. And it only gets bigger seats. But in light of the general inflation out there, to have as low an increase as is proposed was very commendable.
What's the rate of inflation?
Now, that said, I want to increase an expense. But we've talked about it a couple of times already, and I submitted a letter to the effect of detailing a proposed supplemental service, possible contract between the Tuxedo Volunteer Ambulance Corps and the village specifically, which comes with enhancements to overall village health and welfare that can pay dividends over the next year and beyond with the training we look to do and recruiting that we look to do and training of recruits and equipping of those people. So there is some great detail. I won't repeat the whole proposal, but it is a lot of money. We appreciate that, but it's all going to go to good use. And we're simply existing in an environment where our main source of revenue for the Tuxedo Volunteer Ambulance Corps is insurance reimbursement. If you cannot control what we get reimbursed for or how many calls we get called on, and how we are able to collect on those monies due us, because we are not always able to collect the insurance monies that are due in the beginning of the year, for example, people have not met their deductible. So what is meant to be paid to us may not be paid to us. So January and February are light collection months, unless we go after and create that for individuals, potentially, which we tend not to do. And it's a very low return on investment of time, but also it's very damaging to community members potentially that were something that we did do. But nevertheless, this is a proposed support, and there is support for EMS in the town, and everybody knows that, but that does not go to Tuxedo Volunteer Ambulance Corps. That goes to a contract that provides the salary and provision of a 24/7 paramedic. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They are housed in our building. We do not charge them rent, but that is not revenue that we see. And they pay for a paid EMT salary, 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts, Monday to Friday, because quite honestly, it was never envisioned that you could find a volunteer to work a week shift, or multiple volunteers. So that significant contribution of the town goes to that service. We don't get $1 of that money. All the money comes from insurance reimbursements, as I said, and then donations, and that's really it. So a supplemental service would be an important leg, particularly in light of these days, we get fewer calls currently than we had pre-COVID. And many ambulance corps volunteers, community ambulance corps, which is not considered an essential service, so it's not part of the tax base like police or fire. But that's a distinction that people are usually not aware of. Many of them run out of business because of lower call volume. People work from home, they go to urgent care, and again, our fixed costs, our insurance, our fuel, our maintenance, everything we do has not gone down except for insurance reimbursements, however, source. So that's why we really came up with the idea to provide supplemental services. And we also think that the community is really, it's more awareness, and we're asking for volunteers that will get training to be an EMT, a driver, even a social member, but there's not a lot of training for that. Junior members, and that's part of the proposal. And and CPR training is also in there as well, which we can do for anyone in the village or village employees, babysitters, new parents, high school, college kids, and CPR training saves lives. What we do, we'll show up, quarterly, sign up people, and we'll have to buy additional new, better equipment to do that training. That's part of what the expenses would be. All the equipment that we do, unless we can apply for a grant here and there, which we do, we pay for it. We pay for the ambulances, so it is something that I think is necessary and hopefully affordable. And that's why we proposed it. We'll see what you all think about it as a community. If you look at a percent basis of the overall budget, what we have asked for in supplemental service, it's 1.17%. So $1.17 of every $100 spent. Again, we're here to save lives. So I hated that.
So, I mean, I've worked with them a little bit on it, so. You know, through our revenues to the town, there was a significant sum of money that defrays the ambulance corps. Services, not the people. The proportion of calls are about the same as the proportion of population. So my understanding is we get in the zip code of 100 calls a year.
Well, it's, the calls go through, basically, so I live in Tuxedo Park. If I call an ambulance in Tuxedo Park, I'm a 10987 call, so it's a little hard to delineate. If I have a fender bender outside the gate, it's still 10987, but it's not in the village, but it's outside the village, but where the 911 calls though, so. It's really a hard number, we're in the park on an average weekly. And it's a split pretty evenly between, but a little bit fewer advanced life support calls. Meaning paramedic intervention, cardiac arrest, difficulty breathing, life threats, right? And
So a life-threatening call, the fully billed full cost of a life-saving call is in the zip code of $1,000.
no, the advanced life support call is a $2,000 reimbursement typically. And then we also will reimburse that if it's collected, right? To the town to compensate them for paying for the paramedic service. Now, of course, the EMT, we're on that call as well, and we're transporting them on the bus, and we're not getting the revenue for our operations. But when I say you get called, it's a general call, it's not identified, but then all of a sudden there's difficulty breathing, it turns into advanced life support, or vice versa. You think it's life support, but it's indigestion, right? And you don't need a paramedic. And if you show up for a call, and these are the standbys are mentioned, and RMA refuse medical attention, because I'm gonna take myself, I'll be fine, or you come back later. First call, there's no pay for that. If you're standing by for a fire of a house or Greenwood Lake, fires that were threatening Tuxedo Park, that's standby, there's no insurable billing code for being on scene.
I think, Paul, your question was what percentage of calls are for Tuxedo? I think the letter I saw was 15%, right?
Yeah,
For the village.
at
Yeah, but
least,
it's pretty much in line with the population, right, and in those two. But their contribution, that is a very, very significant number of what the town pays, and we pay part of town taxes as well. But again, that doesn't go to the ambulances, that goes to the paramedic contract and the EMT contract exclusively.
yeah, so going back to history, we were prohibited by our council of paying for voluntary ambulance costs, right? That's legally prohibited. And the ambulance corps has said that there are incremental services they can provide if we can do it. The value of services provided to us, given the size of their budget, is probably in the zip code of $100,000. So when I looked through the numbers, it said it struck me as reasonable that we provide somewhere between 25 and 50,000 for incremental services, which are training people, life support. You want to go through the budgets for the three different pieces?
Well, sure, the first one, we put standby services, so you call us and we've come for fireworks, we come for, a regatta, we're on scene. And being on scene, by the way, we were asked to give assistance to somebody who refused it. There's no bill for that, but we were there for one of the people rowing was of concern, for example, without, details. And, but being on service, if the DPW is doing, we haven't done in the past, but if they're doing some sort of repair work and it's dangerous, it'd be great to have an ambulance standing by. Okay, and if there's a car turned over and there's an ambulance attending to the occupant, we send another ambulance if we can get a volunteer, and I've been called to a call of that exact nature, to be on a standby basis in case the rescue people have an issue. Same thing with the fire of an empty house. We're there to help the fire or police that are controlling things and that might be injured. And the same with Greenwood Lake. We were giving aid to the responders and at no billable rate. So standby services, the more we have, the more we can be there to catch something quickly and importantly, without, any delay. And we would do those and bill those out. We have 10 standby services over the course of a year. $1,000 is our lowest reimbursement of an actionable call, but we don't expect to be called. We're there to protect. So that would come out to 10,000 of the ask. CPR training, 4 quarterly courses, up to 10 people we could handle effectively. We'll need to buy equipment, new dummies and new infant dummies and the respirators and the phony AEDs and so on and so forth. But at 2,800 per class to put it on with the personnel and to get there, now we need people to sign up. That's key, but we have to have the class and have the equipment. Then that would be 11,200 for 4 periods. And CPR is proven to save lives. That's not but you never know when and where, but it can happen at any time. Even bad CPR saves lives, right? You do it before we even get there. And then what we want to do is recruit people. And 1 EMT, 2 EMRs, emergency medical responder, don't have to go to the EMT class, but they can help on scene. 2 drivers, we train people. Not easy driving that ambulance generally. On these roads, you have to back down Serpentine Road, back down it in order to pass the test. Is one thing you have to do, okay? And junior corps members. 2 of my daughters and my son have been junior corps members. And it's a fantastic opportunity to see what that type of work is like and to help people. But again, those people, they have to be trained. They need equipment. They need shirts, pants, boots, jackets so that they're reflective and safe and protected. $1,500 a person, right? And we put in all the time. There's no time charge on that. And for the training, we're running the buses, we're at the ambulances, we're doing things of that nature. And it costs about $900 to get a general outfit for somebody. So that would be a $16,800 item. And if we could ever get all those recruits, we'd be thrilled because we don't have enough people doing the jobs that we do. So we're always looking and not always publicizing that well enough. And then we want to upgrade the life-saving devices. And these are things that we're all short of equipment, right? So we're in heavy jackets in the summer or light summer jackets in the winter, and it affects our ability to help people, quite honestly. So about a $500 for active member increase in that. And we need batteries replaced for the Lucas system, which costs $30,000. And those, you replace your lawnmower electric batteries, expensive. The medical ones, it's another zip code. And so we talked about a supplemental cost for our 20 active volunteers of $450 and so on, $15,000 for the equipment and supplies. We also keep medications that we don't dispense, right? And they go bad, but we got to keep them. Very often allergic reactions need have an expired function for us to treat that. So we're throwing out things we don't use and we're throwing out things we do use. Reimbursement is based on the call, right? They don't care how many bandages you really use. You don't itemize things. You get a general X dollars. So the reason we're asking is we're generally short monthly, right? Currently, call volume should increase over time because the population is increasing and we have new building going on, in the community. But until that happens, our fixed costs have to be covered. So one way or another, or we go into deficit and we can't do the service the way we would like.
So my perspective is that as a village resident, that we get significant services from the Volunteer Ambulance Corps that we don't fully pay for. We're not allowed to pay for services that we receive, but we can enhance the value of what the Volunteer Ambulance Corps presents to the village through training kids in CPR, training club members in CPR, training village employees in CPR, and making sure that's there. Now, some of those calls, some of those things will change over time. So, I personally have no idea how we judge the volatility year over year. But, you know, my back of the envelope thing says we're getting services that are probably in excess of 100. I wouldn't want to invest in these new services of less than 25, and it's probably more appropriate that it be in the 50 zip code. And we can consider it next year again, when we see how well it's been used.
Well, I think then what we'll do is look for sources of funding, because there may be alternative sources aside from the general fund, such as, money that's been donated to the village generously by benefactors, and perhaps that can be used as all or a portion of the amount that you would ultimately recommend, which, with 25 to over 50 is a wide range. But why don't we see what kind of funding is available outside of the general fund over the next few weeks, and pick this up again at the next board meeting on the 20th. Does that sound, Trustee Brooke?
That's fine. Again, from my perspective, I know that they had to replace one ambulance. That's in the zip code of $30,000 charge.
I'm sorry, an ambulance is $350,000. And what we try to do is,
The engine thing.
3,000
the
over,
engine costs
but the
25.
life expectancy is like 6 years, so it's about 50,000 a year, which is where it comes to me. That was done as a donation, as I believe. So they're
Correct.
already the benefit of a donation.
there is an ambulance being replaced, hopefully this summer, that through the generous anonymous donation of a single family.
Right.
Right, and however, it's a 10-year depreciation factor for an ambulance. So at $350,000, you're putting away $35,000 a year to replace the one. Right. We don't have that in our budget because we don't have that in our revenue. Okay, and so it's a Hail Mary to get the gift that we have.
What would you have done if you hadn't gotten that donation?
We'd be repairing and running an old ambulance that's longer than we could, because like I said, the depreciation's 10 years.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have our other ambulance
Backup one.
go another 5 to 10, but it's already been fully depreciated.
Got it.
And what happens is then they become less reliable and less state of the art.
And we all want our ambulances to work.
Yeah, and we have actually the state of the art ambulance, the box truck that you're familiar with that we have, because people are all sizes and people helping the people need room. The ambulettes that you see, the vans, they're cheaper, but there's no room in them
No.
for the passage, relatively speaking. So we try to keep it the best, and we reuse things like the Stryker, the automatic stretcher that lifts someone up. It can lift 700 pounds. We have to upgrade that to lift someone that's heavier. There are people heavier, right? But those are close to $100,000. We take them out. And so we reuse and mix and match as
As Willie
we can.
said, I agree with the mayor's proposal that we look at how this can be funded and consider it the next trustee meeting. And I think there are two levels. One, there may be donations that we can tap. But there's also a service provided through the village, which means there should be something in the village budget for services that are provided for the health and welfare of our population.
Makes sense.
I
Makes sense.
appreciate that, and I think also even the word of mouth, the people knowing that we're there and that we want to do this, we want their involvement, and we want to train people. We can do it here, we can do it at the village office. That'll be, I really hope it gets taken.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. We'll see you May 20th, 7 p.m.
All right.
Anybody else in the room wish to address the board with respect to the proposed budget? Professor Hayes.
Thank you.
I just have some questions that as a matter of clarification regarding the things that have to do with the lakes. First of all, in the general fund, item SPV 20.40A, stormwater, EIS and engineering. Now, I remember the village approved a contract with the village engineer for something like $20,000 plus for the coming year. But I don't see that listed here, so maybe you put it somewhere else.
We were just talking before that we're gonna make sure we put that 20,000 in that budget line.
Okay, so that's going in.
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't
Then
be in sewer.
the other. in
Well,
the-
it's, there was, excuse me, Jen, Elizabeth was asking, we had thought about putting it in the sewer budget, but it really isn't a functioning of the sewer plant item. So that's why I think it's gonna go back into the general fund.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
There you go. So
But
it's
stormwater
actually in
was
the
sewer.
budget, but it's in the sewer budget, is that right?
There is money in the sewer budget for that, but I think it should be in the general funds.
Yeah, I think it probably should.
Okay.
Okay, the other is in the water fund and, this is, 1989.4 F. It's a lake management and watershed study. Now, I don't understand quite what does this include the lake manager's proposal for, this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. Does it include the algae treatment?
No,
The 20
he's asking something different. It's
Well, the
not,
2,500 is the algae
but
treatments,
the
right?
100,000, you're
Yeah,
asking
the
about
100,000
right?
that we didn't use. So,
I'm wondering what's in this coming year's budget for AJ's work.
Because we said we would pay him a retainer. I forget the number offhand. Because basically, if, memory serves correctly, he basically said that in fairness.
Yeah, no, he needs to be compensated
So-
for his time. So when we call him, they need to be paid,
Yeah.
right? And I think he sent a couple of weeks ago a new contract over.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was after we did the agenda for last week's. We'll
Right.
put it on the May 20th agenda.
Right.
okay, so
It wasn't a sizable amount of money,
No.
but we should include it.
we will, yeah, we can do that. We'll include that. So we got an updated contract since the preliminary budget was done, so we'll just add it.
So it's going to go in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
definitely.
yes.
Okay.
We're gonna renew that contract.
The last question is, what about the oxidation project? Is that going to be in this year's?
It should be. The problem we have is we just don't know how much it's gonna be. And what AJ is doing right now is figuring out what grants are available to us. Because I think the project they had proposed was north of $500,000, which we're not going to pay as a village. But his belief was that we might be able to get grants sufficient that we only pay for 25% of that. I reached out to him about a week ago. I haven't heard back from him. But if that's something that's actionable, I think the problem is we don't know if we have something that's actionable right now. If it's actionable, I'm sure we'll find a way to move forward with it.
Yeah,
Just for your reference, on April 12th, I received the proposal. The proposal includes the following tasks: water quality monitoring, aquatic plant surveys,
Yep.
sample analysis, mileage and equipment, and summary memo. Total cost that he proposes is $40K for all those services.
okay.
Okay, so that's,
And that would go under water management contractual? No, it would go under
I have a,
lake management watershed stuff.
This is not, isn't it?
that would be like, but I would
Lake
think-
I would
management,
have thought so. 1989.4.
I have a related non-budget question. Did we get the permits for the treatment of the lake this year already?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, we paid for treating all three lakes.
Okay.
And it's their responsibility to get, they said they're gonna get the permits,
Okay,
but
awesome.
we paid in February,
Thank you.
so they have plenty of time to get those permits.
Right, I
You're
definitely.
talking about the algae bloom.
Yeah, I don't want a repeat of what
Yeah,
Is
last.
this a personal concern?
It's a village concern.
Totally necessary.
Yeah, we understand.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, that's all I.
Do we have anybody else online, Elizabeth?
No.
Anyone at all?
Just
Joanne,
Joanne Hanson.
Oh, we don't see her. Is she able to?
Well, I think she turned her video. I don't know. Oh, she just.
Oh,
turned
there
her
she
video.
is.
Hi, Joanne. Can you hear us?
Yep.
You're the only member of the public here on Zoom, so we're gonna give you a chance now. Is there anything you want to tell us or any questions you have with respect to the proposed budget?
No, I was just listening to the discussion.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
thanks.
you. All right.
So we'll update this preliminary budget by adding the 40,000 under lake management. We
Water
also,
fund. I was just wondering.
what did I say?
You said.
Oh,
you-
okay, sorry.
I was just
okay,
adding
water
to
fund,
what you
okay.
said.
And then also, I think we'll take the consultant fee of up to 22,000 out of the water fund as well. That's the consultant that's gonna help us reevaluate all our water and sewer rates.
Mhm.
I think
Okay.
20,200.
No, this is something different. This is a
This is,
consultant.
Ed Marcus of Amawak Consultants. We signed an agreement with him to assist us in setting new water and sewer rates.
So with, as part of the bond effort,
Yeah.
we did the rates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is that,
So-
I'm so sorry. Is that part of the water fund too?
that'll be a water fund thing.
Okay, and
And I mean, even though we're gonna be talking about water and sewer, I think
Okay.
it should just come out of
And
water
Do you
because
know what budget line?
it would be contractual. Let's see. Contractual. Water administration,
Can I
probably,
just ask,
8310.
what are in those line items, 8310, 10F and 40, well, like particularly 40F? The 55, yeah. I just want to make sure we're not already picking up AJ's contract. Cause that was about a 40,000.
You didn't know about that contract, right?
No,
I didn't
not
add it,
specifically.
So, because I didn't have that number when I did this budget, so.
I'm just wondering what the 55 is.
So
and-
it's, it should be VRI. And,
That would make sense,
yeah, it should be VRI.
Oh, and VRI
It's
is
the outsourced
is
service
41F,
used to run the water plant and the sewer plant, I think.
but that's
Yeah.
a separate line item.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it's right underneath, right? Remember, like, if you look at 41F,
Yep.
It's a
Is,
subset, it's
it's a subset, okay.
exactly,
So some portion of 40F goes down to 41F,
that's exactly it.
okay, all right.
Do
Okay.
you mind me saying that?
no, please, thank you.
The stormwater and engineering line item, actually, there's been $20,000 in that line for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's right.
Yes, it should have been in there. I didn't know if it was gonna be more, so. anyway.
Yeah, they had an initial meeting earlier this month and they're moving forward with the mapping process.
We're actually getting progress, Jim.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think Jeff mentioned his approach at the last meeting.
Yep.
It's gonna take some time, but.
It'll take time, but at least we're moving.
It's gonna take some time. We'll get it done. It's not gonna be next week. He was very clear on that.
I think he said he could try to do 1 day a week, which.
Yeah, but he still wanted us to know, but it wasn't gonna be done by the next board meeting, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that was his point.
He was managing expectations.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Any other comments from the trustees on the proposed budget before I close the public hearing?
Okay, I just wanted to just go over the
Sure.
change, so I know what to put them. In the general fund, we're talking about adding 22,000 back to 5020.4 for GIS/ENG. 5020.4.
For a stormwater GIS, right, that's the,
Yes,
We're adding 22,000 back to that. I just want to make sure I got it right.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Jim had said it was in the budget before.
I know, which makes me think it's in a different line. item.
Yeah, it must be somewhere else.
I just want to make sure, yeah.
Just, I'm not sure the exact line it's gonna go in, but just make a note that we're gonna add that.
So we
Make,
are
we're
gonna
gonna
add
make
that.
sure it's in.
Okay.
Okay, let me put it that way.
That's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
The only reason I'm trying to be more specific is that we're supposed to approve the budget today, so that's why we would approve it with the following
With the
changes.
following changes,
And we'd
yes.
be more specific about
Okay.
what it is.
Well, let's,
So we could just say, or, you know,
We can always
subject
put it
to-
in there and then eventually later on change it if we realize That it
We
was,
just say subject to approval of X, Y, Z up to a certain amount.
Or just confirming that it's not already,
Yeah.
in another line item.
okay, all right.
So there's not another line item, we'll approve it up to X amount.
And then in the water, we have the 1989.4, 40,000 for the AJ contract.
I'm sorry, which line item is that?
Sorry, 1989.4, that's Lakes Management in the
Yes.
water fund,
40,000, you said.
40,000 for the AJ
That
contract.
was the number he quoted, yes.
Yep.
And then we have, in addition, we're adding in 22,000 in the water fund to 8310.4.
8310.4 contractual, yeah.
Is that was the other one?
That's for Commonwealth. I
And
think
that was
that's
for,
how you-
yeah,
It was 22, right?
Up to
22.
Up to
22.
22, it may be less, yeah.
okay. And then, in the general fund, we're adding back the 35.7 for the mayor's salary line, and that's 1210.1.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure now.
Yes.
Okay, we're putting in some extra numbers, your last chance. All right.
The offset to these will be the, appropriations,
Appropriations, yep.
so that the tax rate doesn't go up, is that correct?
The appropriated surplus.
That's
not
what I meant to say, I'm
appropriation.
sorry,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes, the
The general
main
fund.
numbers in the box
Right, the water fund.
will not change.
The water fund, I think, shows income, so just in the general fund, we'll be using appropriated surplus to offset those
Yes,
increases, okay.
the water fund budget and the sewer fund budget are showing surpluses, so we should be fine.
All right,
Okay, yeah, I think that's all I have, the changes.
Okay,
And if you guys just want to take a look, these are the latest balances in our new NY class accounts.
That's fantastic. I mean, in aggregate, that's close to 4. Right.
we still have money in the bank account
Budget
too.
is 3.7.
We have like $1 million in the bank.
Our tax levy. So we're good. The only fund, obviously, that's a little weak is the sewer fund.
Right.
So we have to just rectify that.
Yeah. Wow.
It's great though.
Well done. We pay a dividend.
That was, what did you say?
Oh,
I missed that.
so
I missed it too.
anything else, folks, before I move to close the public hearing? Yep, okay. I make a motion to close the public hearing on the 2025-2026 budget at 5:59. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by trustee Brooke, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Right, okay. All right, that concludes the public hearing portion of this evening, and now we have a special meeting of the board, which I call to order. All trustees and the mayor and deputy mayor are present, and the purpose of this meeting will be twofold. One, to approve the budget as amended at the hearing, and two, to renew the employee health insurance plan, and I'll discuss that once we deal with the issue of the budget. So let me make a motion. I make a motion, seconded by, any second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Turner. Be it resolved that we adopt the 2025-2026 budget as set forth at the public hearing with the changes and amendments made during the course of the hearing. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor of adopting the budget as proposed and amended at the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. That takes care of item 1. Item 2, I had a chance to continue to study the health plan options that were available. As I mentioned at the last meeting, Marshall and Sterling gave me 35 separate silver plans and a breakdown on each of those plans. Okay, and I was able to get it down to 2, which would be choice 1, renewing MVP Health, the plan we have now, at an 8% premium increase.
Wow.
Or 2, going with United Healthcare, which would be a 3% increase over the current amount we're paying. So it's a 5% difference. And when I compared the plans, the doctors who were available, the benefits, In addition to the fact that as part of the police negotiation, I've already made this offer to them. I've asked them to, if they're willing to join MVP and drop night shift, thereby saving $500 a month in premium payments, and they're going to consider it. And the fact that the employees I've spoken to are happy with the MVP health plan, I'm recommending, despite the fact that there's an additional 5% increase in premium cost, that we go forward with a renewal of the plan that's been serving our employees well for several years now. If you want the numbers, I can give them to you. If not, I think we should move forward, and I will continue to negotiate with the police department, because if we can save money on health insurance, that certainly will be very helpful. Okay, all right. I make a motion that we approve the renewal of the MVP health insurance with the policy date starting June 1st of 2025. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by trustee Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay. Now, I have nothing to discuss in executive session. Does anybody else have anything that I want to discuss? Okay, so we'll pass over that. And I will have some final comments, which I would have done earlier. I received a report yesterday from a resident who enjoys walking the trails that she discovered a smoldering bonfire in the middle of one of the trails. And while she took some photos and put it out, I want to reiterate to everybody here in the village that there is a burn ban. And we've all been aware of what happened in South Jersey and the tragedy that took place when someone lit several bonfires that destroyed thousands and thousands of acres. And I'm asking you not to start fires on the trails. There is a burn ban, and if we catch you, you're going to have a problem. That's number one. Number two, I want to remind everyone that the school board election day is May 20th, that we have 2 village residents that are running. We have Bronwyn Roundtree from Westlake Road and Jean-Paul Turgina from Butternut. They are 2 of 6 candidates. There will be an informational meeting, I understand, in Weewa sometime in the next 2 weeks to provide voters with information about the school budget, which was just proposed last night, as well as information on how to cast your ballot in the school board election, either in person at the school or by absentee ballot. And I would recommend that everybody take advantage of that informational session, and that everybody who has the opportunity get out and vote on the school budget, as well as for 3 candidates of the 6 who are running. There are 3 vacancies, 2 of which are our village residents. And with that being said, any trustee comments to follow up?
I'm just wondering if we should send a note to the village about the burn ban.
I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
I would,
really
I
do.
think that
Because
maybe a
that's good.
sign
It's
at
something,
both
yeah.
as well.
And people should talk to their kids.
Yeah,
I think what happened last year, right in our backyard, basically.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get a message out on the burn ban, reminding people not to be lighting any fires in the woods.
And then have them remind their kids.
Yeah, well, the other thing, I'll mention it, is that the person who discovered this smoldering bonfire in the middle of the trail also said there was a distinct smell of marijuana,
Not surprising.
which would lead me to conclude it was probably persons of the younger generation.
Yep.
Okay. So with that being said, I make a motion that we adjourn this special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
all right.
Aye. Okay, thank you all for coming in person. It was good to see
Josh
you.
wants to stay.
Yes.
Nice to have everybody here.
You can stop the recording. Thank you.
Oh, right.